is going on, everybody?
Doing
We're
chilling.
back for another episode of the Cheap Seats. You know how it goes. Every Monday night, we kind of get your week started. We sit around, barbershop, talk some, stuff that's going on in the sports world. We have a great show for you all tonight. We're going to talk about obviously NBA. Regular season ended, playoffs playing, all that good stuff. Have some NFL topics as the draft is now only it's like a week and a half away. So definitely excited for that, as well as some other news that you may not have, paid attention to within the NFL, college football as well. We'll definitely touch on that. But before we get into everything, got to introduce the crew tonight. First off, we got Godfrey. How are you doing tonight, Godfrey?
V Godfrey is doing good. Not to talk about myself in a third person, but coming fresh off WrestleMania, I feel like it's kind of infused. And listen, it's draft season. I'm happy, and football is going to be back in the full swing of things. I guess there's hockey and baseball play. Basketball playoffs, but I get my teams in it, so I'll be watching it. I'm still confused by this whole play-in thing. Maybe you guys can explain it to me, but I just feel like I don't know what the hell is going on. Like, who's in the playoffs? I don't even know. Is everybody in now? I guess we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. I have a graphic to put up for the playoffs to make it a little clearer for everybody. So, because some people, when it gets down to this time of the year, the plan can be a little confusing as to how do you move on and everything like that. So we'll definitely explain that. But also have to introduce Jory right here next to me. How you doing tonight, Jory?
I'm all right. Work was work, but I'm excited for the playoffs. I'm learning a little bit about baseball. I have a new favorite player,
I
so
mean,
I'm there with that.
you want to let the people know who your
Oh
new
yeah.
favorite player is?
Uh Now I can't think of his name now. Ellie Dela Cruz. I am a
Okay,
fan,
he's electric. He's an
Yeah,
and the
very
White
young
Sox are
electric player.
trash.
Yeah, very young electric player. He's got a lot of raw ability. So,
yeah,
I question for you
not a bad
is
place to start. Yeah, go
hold
ahead,
on.
Godfrey.
If I hit present, will it show my screen?
It should. Yes.
All right. Don't hate me on this, Kyle, but I'm looking for a. I'm looking for. What am I looking for here? I'm looking for I'm trying to share out the link of the show and the network that we're doing this on, and I stumbled across your Facebook page and I found young Kyle. Is this you?
That is me.
Wow. I was like, who's this kid? I thought that was your son.
No,
And did you have one? How do you? I was like, did you have a son? He didn't tell us.
nah,
So
not at
I'm
all.
just trolling Kyle a little bit there. I was like, man, look at young Kyle here. I went on his Facebook page to find the link, and I'm like, who's this guy on there? That's from like circa what 2011.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel old, man. That's like 13. What is that? Like 13 years ago? We all feel old. Yeah. Jury wasn't even out of middle school yet. That's
I wasn't even in middle school yet.
damn. Anyway, where do we share out so the listeners aren't confused? Because I know we're not on Sports Empire, but we're on Integrity Sports Network. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Am I saying that
Yep.
correctly? All right.
Yes.
So tell me and the viewers where we share it, where we go to get to Integrity at. Is that Facebook, YouTube?
Could definitely do that. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter/X, whatever however you want to refer to it. Just go ahead and look up Integrity Sports Network on there.
Integrity
You'll
Sports Network. All right.
yes, you'll find us and make sure you
I
give a
swear
like.
I liked it already, and I'm like, what the heck?
Oh, Facebook can be a little weird. They very moody at times, but yeah, I can probably drop it in the chat as well. But
Drop it in there for me. Help me out here. So
yes, I can definitely do that. While I'm doing that, I'll let you. Well, yeah, we'll go ahead and get into our first topic. That way, I can do that while setting it all up. I think we'll start with Jory tonight. So, Jory, go ahead and introduce the first topic for us.
So Deion Sanders, who he's outspoken. He has his own personality. He said that he only wants to go for Shador and Travis Hunter and Shiloh, his two sons and Travis Hunter. to go to, let's see, he said the 49ers. He said
He said
I
what?
can't even think of the
Falcons,
list. He said the
Eagles.
Falcons,
49ers, Commanders,
Commanders.
Dallas
Yeah, he said some a lot of
Cowboys,
teams.
and Ravens.
Yes.
I believe those are the. Did he say five? I could be wrong here. Correct me if I'm wrong. That is, those are the five teams. I'm pretty sure.
And I really just wanted to know you guys' general thoughts on that because I got a lot to say about that, and I'm gonna go last. So Godfrey, I'll let you go first. Kyle, you go next, and then I'll just close it out.
You
Okay.
know, kind of mixed on it. I think it's pretty. So the thing with Shador is he going to be a top talent? He thinks he is, but does everybody else think he is? And he played okay this year. I know people who think Shador Sanders is great because of the hype. I'm like, did he really play that great? I wanted him to do great. I love the whole Dion thing, but for him to say that he's, I guess, saying that his kid and his player are going to be a top player, but then you got Jim Harbaugh saying JJ McCarthy's the top quarterback, right? And then then I asked myself, is it any different than Archie Manning saying that his kid won't play for the Chargers, or John Elway saying I'll play baseball? And to me, if I'm a GM, I'm like, go do that. I'm calling your bluff, straight up. But at the same time, I can, if I'm guessing by the nature of the teams that he's naming, it almost seems like it's teams that have worked with mobile quarterbacks or have offensive coordinators that have. So maybe that's what that's about. The Commanders have Cliff Kingsbury, even though he wasn't successful working with Kyler Murray, he was his quarterback. He did have Patrick Mahomes in college. So he's a Commanders OC. The Eagles have success with Jalen Hurts. So they have a system that could probably take advantage of his skills. The Ravens, obviously, with Lamar there. Um, Dallas, obviously, with Dak. Who's the fifth team there? 49ers, Brock Purdy's not the most mobile, but it is the type of system where you can take advantage of that skill set. They tried to with Trey Lance, which I thought was a mistake, but that's another story. And so he's saying that, but, those teams also, let's forecast out. I think the Eagles will still have a quarterback. I think the Ravens will. The 49ers, maybe. I would say I will lean on the side toward yes if they're sticking with Brock Purdy. Dallas, I think there will be an opening because I think Dak's going to be gone after this year, and that's just my early take on it. They got to out in that contract. They're going to be like, yeah, we don't need to see this again. So they're going to move on, perhaps. Then you have the who am I missing here? We said Ravens,
Falcons.
Falcon. Oh, he had the Falcons on
Falcons.
there too. The
Yep.
Falcons I don't get because they just signed a 3-year deal with Kirk Cousins. Unless he thinks that Kirk Cousins is going to wet the bed, right away, and then they're going to have to make a contingency plan, or maybe it's just because he's comfortable with Atlanta. He likes the team. He's played for them. He came out with them, so I might have some familiarity there. Although the current owner of the Falcons wasn't the owner when he was a player, but they might have a relationship because of his roots there. I don't know his reasoning. I would assume that could change. I would assume, maybe he's just, channeling his inner, Lamar Ball, or he's channeling his inner Archie Manning. But, I don't know if he could answer that question, or, I don't know if they asked him or he just kind of stated that. It almost seems like he stated it, but you know, Travis, oh, and Travis Hunter. So it's 6 teams. I'm looking at it right now. I must have forgot one. Ravens, the Commanders, the
Commanders.
Falcons, Cowboys, the Eagles. Um, you know, that's I'm like, all right, cool. He has I mean, I'm reading it right now. So he wants to put them in the best position to succeed. So I get that, coming from a father standpoint. But, Travis Hunter, a little bit different there of skill set. I think he's got more to bring as right now than Shador Sanders does. But we'll see. He's got another year. Maybe Shador Sanders, he has to show it this year. So I guess he knows something we don't. Um, he's gonna get all that hate because there's people that are college football fans like this kid's not a top quarterback. Some people think he is. I've seen some flashes from him. They haven't had an offensive line, so that was their problem last year. And they're still building. So my question is Dion gonna pull the ultimate LeBron in a will and say, "Hey, um, I'm going to coach here and draft my kid"? Does he take an open coaching position next year and leave Colorado and then draft them himself?
If you
That's the
know,
old.
but
I
you know
could
how
see
many
that.
people will hate him.
Oh yeah, but that's Dion can handle that. If there's one guy that can handle it, it's Dion.
That's true.
I
True.
mean, if and I kind of like the villain of it. But yeah, that's what position will Hunter play? Maybe Dion's going to make him a two-way player. Dion tried that himself. He was a better cornerback than he was a wide receiver. So, good question. What position will they
Devin
make him?
Hester tried it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So Devin Hester tried it, but Devin Hester he broke Dion's record, but he wasn't as good as Dion. In fact, Devin
Right.
Hester shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame yet. Don't even get me started on that. There's players that he leaped, and he was a returner like Eric Allen, one of the top all-time cornerbacks. I know he's an Eagle, but stop. Like, there's other people should have got him before Devin Hester. Like, give me a break. Like, he. I know he was great at the kickoff game, but like, you got to wait a little bit as a returner. I'm sorry. There's nothing else he brought to the table. Yeah, he's a good athlete, good kick returner, good punt returner, but he should not be in the Hall of Fame yet. That's a whole nother discussion. But I don't think he's wrong. But I do think it's a little presumptuous of him to make that statement and kind of declare them already before the next college season. So I think he's a little bit ahead of the pail here, and I think he needs to kind of chillax himself and instead of talking about it, be about it.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely agree with a lot that you're saying there, Godfrey, because I mean, I get it. As a dad, he wants his son to be in the best position that he thinks he can succeed, become a champion, everything like that. The Travis Hunter part of it, with Hunter not being his kid, is a little bit weird, but Dion has taken on a definitely prominent role at Colorado, so I guess he's just looking out for all his top prospects. I don't know. I just feel like if you are a top prospect, you are supposed to be a guy who's to steal from Cam Newton here, a game changer. So if that's how you are, if that's the mentality you have, then it kind of should be no matter where I go, I'm gonna transform that situation and make it what it is. Obviously, we know in the NFL that doesn't happen. We've seen a lot of top picks go places and be ruined, and they're never kind of the same for the rest of their career. So once again, I get why he said what he did. It's just that I don't need to hear that right now. Like they have a season to worry about. Last year they played, had a lot of hype after a 3-0 start. Everybody was on the Colorado bandwagon, and then their season went completely in the toilet after that. And we didn't really hear much about Colorado later in the season, especially during bowl season because they didn't make it. So why not let Travis Hunter and his kids get into the season? If they have another hot start and you hear like some NFL buzz, if he wants to come out and say something at that point, sure. Because I'm also like you, Godfrey. I don't know if Shador is like you write it in ink, a top 5 pick. Travis Hunter, maybe, because I think the intrigue of him being able to play corner and wide receiver, playing really well at both, some team will obviously take him, probably convert him into one, and I can see that. Shador needs a strong season if he's going to vault himself up there. Because look at how people are looking at the draft for next year. They say it's a weak quarterback class. So obviously that means he has an opportunity to set himself apart and probably become a top pick. But as of right now, I don't know if I would use a top 5 pick on him necessarily, just based off of this past season. So, yeah, I didn't need Dion to necessarily say that, but we all know Dion's going to talk because when Dion talks, people pay attention, and he gets that attention nationally. So, it is what it is. I'm not surprised. That's kind of like the thing now. Parents want to talk about where their kids should play and shouldn't play. And also, last thing I'll say, it is on these teams to call his bluff. Because if you are, I'm trying to think of like a bad team that could be like if you're the Panthers. I mean, that's probably a bad situation, but let's say they feel like Bryce Young just isn't it, and they want to go back and get another quarterback, which would be probably the worst thing to do. But looking at what Carolina's done the past couple of years, I wouldn't put it past them.
It could be
If they
worse.
feel like right, exactly, they very could well. So if the Panthers really liked Shadur up towards the top of the draft, would they draft him at the off chance that Shador would actually like playing there, or would they stay away because he's not because the Panthers aren't on that list? And looking at that list, who's to say any of those teams are up near the top of the draft next year? So that kind of doesn't make any sense either. But yeah, I'm not surprised from Dion. That's kind of the main thing.
I
I
am
know Jerry, you're ready to go, so
exasperated.
I'll let you go.
I am exasperated with Deion Sanders. Oh, and I don't want to sound mean when I say it, but I do have a little bit of Deion fatigue when it comes to him just saying stuff. Because and it kind of makes me think most sports parents just start running off at the mouth like this. And I'm like, don't you have bigger things to worry about? Like your trenches, so you can help your son, the quarterback, be a top 5 pick instead of worrying about who's going to pick him next year. And then if you think about the list, I'm like, first of all, you play for half the teams on the list. So we're just going to eliminate that out right out. So I'm calling bias on that. The only team like the Commanders, they're getting ready to draft a quarterback. They're at what, 2?
Yep.
So they're about to get their franchise quarterback. The Falcons, it depends on if they want to sit him a year. Yes, it does show that he cares more about his sons than his team. And I was about to get there too. Um, shoot, the Eagles. I can see why he would want him to back up Jalen Hurts, but Jalen ain't going nowhere no time soon.
I hope
You want
not.
him to be drafted high so he can play, but half the teams on this list, he's not gonna play right away.
I will say if Jalen falters, they've given him a lot of weapons, and if he doesn't produce this year, there will be
I,
rumblings, and there might be a plan for the future. So there could be an opening. I mean,
could be.
but yeah, I think you're spot on. I mean,
And it's like, it's annoying because you're a coach of a football team. You have a whole bunch of other players you need to worry about, not just 1, 2, and 3. Like, you need to be worried about this season and conditioning and everything instead of worrying about the draft next year. Get to December this year first, and then we can start talking draft. The coach will be gone before Hurts. Uh, Nick Sirianni is definitely on the hot seat because last year can't happen again. Um, and sometimes I just wish the man would shut up, but it's not gonna happen because he's Deion Sanders.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
agreed. Yeah, let me answer that guy's question. Anthony Price down there in the comments. Um, he says, "Does this show he cares about his sons more than the team?" Well, um, yeah, it does. But I mean, Dion is about the business side of it, so he's going to tell you like, yeah, this team doesn't care about his sons, and he's right in saying that, right? So I don't think he's wrong. It's kind of a loaded question because it does show he care. I mean, who wouldn't care more about their sons than the team? You know, the quote, Ricky Waters, for who, for what, right? I mean, that's so. I just kind of think, yeah, but I can see the Dion fatigue for sure. You know what I mean? Travis got parents. Key's right. What?
And by the
But
time they enter the draft, they will be grown ass men. They can make their own decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're grown men now. Who are you to tell them I don't want you to go there because da 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 da? What if they want to go there? Huh? You got to let people live their own lives instead of just trying to stick to a straight guideline. I understand you want success, but at the same time, let these players make their own decisions and quit running your mouth, because it sometimes it will end up hindering the decisions that they make. Sometimes. I got the fatigue. I'm tired of them.
I mean, look, if you look at the most recent example of this, Godfrey brought him up, LeVar Ball. LeVar did this. He talked about all three of his kids were great. They're gonna kill in the league. Said that Lonzo was Steph Curry. You know, LaMelo was
Two
supposed to be
can't
this
stay
great
healthy and one
scorer and
went to
everything
jail.
like.
So where's that?
Right, but I mean, even for LeVar, I guess you understood what he was doing, but then you were like, no team's gonna fall for this. And all it takes is one general manager. I mean,
Don't remind me.
I'm not throwing shade at your franchise, but it was a perfect storm because
Damn
Magic is
Lakers.
somebody who kind of gets caught up in the attention of some things. He knew how much heat LeVar Ball had, and I say to this day that was why he was part of the process to bring in Lonzo Ball. I still sit here and I say to this day, if you needed a point guard, De'Aaron Fox was the much
Was
better option.
right there. Right there.
They played in the same conference and everything. You saw the two of them go up against each other, but De'Aaron didn't have the attention as Lonzo Ball. But that's neither here nor there. So all it will take is for one GM in the NFL to buy into all this. Maybe one of those teams moves up and gets him, and then everybody will look at it and say, see, Dion knew what he was doing. He was
Well,
trying to do right by his
Tony
kid.
Hunter is very loyal to Dion, right?
Yeah.
Uh, it's almost like he. I was just looking up to see if it was his godchild. It's not so, but um, I will tell you that he was committed to Florida State, and I think Florida State made a mistake looking over Dion, even though they had a great year last year. And then he up and went to Jackson State, and there is a huge chasm between going to Florida State and Jackson State. I don't care what your motives are. You're trying to make that school come up out of the ash, whatever you want to do. There's still a huge chasm, a huge gap going from Florida State to Jackson State, or vice versa. And he left that and went there with them. Now, I can understand in the college ranks, you want to be utilized and play how you want. And, that's probably what it's about. It does give fatigue, but I do think I'll take Travis Hunter on the Eagles. You damn right I will. And so the thing is you have to look at it in a sense where he might be being protective, but at the same time you are setting a standard for these kids, and I think that hurt the balls at first when with what they did. You're setting this standard that they have to hit. You're not giving them the ability to work up to that level. You're saying they're going to be that from the door, right? So that's where I think that's a mistake on any parents' part. Dion, non-Dion, somebody's kid in Pop Warner, whatever it may be, at a certain point, you got to let them play the game. And what happens on the
You're
court.
definitely hearing it, Pop Warner. I grew up with the Pop Warner football, youth league football. Oh my
Those
God.
parents need to chill. They need to
And I was
straight.
a coach's daughter. I wanted to turn around and tell the parents to shut up. Because I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Every parent thinks their kid is Barry Sanders or
I could.
Michael Jordan, LeBron, so they're always going to pump up their kids. I think it's one of the toughest jobs out there,
I couldn't do it.
dealing
I was
with parents
like,
who are
your
completely
kid.
blind to how good their
Yeah.
kids actually are, and you just have to be like, well, I'm their coach. I kind of know their ability a little bit more than you. I'm not as judgmental as you are or prejudiced towards your own kid. But yeah, because I've seen it like at middle school level. Like parents are telling their kids to shoot shots that they know their kid shouldn't be taking, but to them, their kid's gonna make it. And then when the air balls it, it's like that's why your kid shouldn't be shooting.
Yeah. Something
And
tells me
tell them
Anthony
that to their
Davis.
face, boy.
Not a,
Hey, you parents are the worst.
I've seen it. I've seen it. I have a nephew that played AAU ball, and but so are high school. High school coaches are a pain in the ass too, but But I will say, if I was a Pop Warner coach, I'd be like, listen, that clip that you show at parties of your kid scoring a touchdown don't mean shit. I would get fired. I'd be like, listen, your kid's not that great. Like he's a kid still. Let him grow up. Let him play the game. Your kid is a kid right now. So you're telling me he's going to show the dedication it takes to become a pro athlete? I'm like, there's nobody on, unless I'm talking to Randy Moss. Like I'm not hearing that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Especially because they don't even wait till they're like 10 or 12. They start as soon as 6. I'm like, will you chill out?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Stop playing.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, look, I feel like it's probably not the last time we'll hear from Dion at
Uh-uh.
all, because even once Colorado gets going, he'll be talking because the microphones will be in his face. We'll see how they all perform, because I do agree Hunter is probably the better prospect of the three. But some teams, when they see a quarterback, they
Happy.
get infatuated and they'll overdraft for the quarterback as opposed to you know best player, which kind of transitions into our next topic. So Godfrey, go ahead and kick that one off.
All right. So I have this question. There's a lot of indent. There's a lot of amendments I have to make to this question. All right. So the premise here is that we know Caleb Williams is going to be the first pick. Okay. Most likely, Jaden Daniels will be the second pick. It could be Drake May,
Mm-hmm.
but odds are it's a quarterback at the second pick. Brings us to the Patriots or other teams, right? So after those two quarterbacks, it's kind of shaky. Some people are in on Drake May, some people are out. Some people are in on JJ McCarthy, some people are out. Some people are in on Michael Penix, some people are out. In this day and age of football, quarterbacks are invented in the draft, and then you see if they pan out later, where it didn't used to be like that, right? People will act like they knew about Patrick Mahomes. I didn't, and most people didn't either. So they'll like, look at the Bears. They took Patrick Mahomes. They took Trubisky over Holmes. You didn't know who was who, so you don't get to play that game. We can't just be having a 2020 vision and act like, oh, we knew Mahomes was who. No, no one did. Stop playing. I thought he was a player when I saw him in the preseason, in the beginning of the second season on the team, and I saw him make some throws in preseason. I was like, ooh, that kid can ball. But you have some generational talent sometimes in the draft, right? That it's a hit, right? When you're picking top 5, even top 10, you got to hit top 5 especially, right? So in my mind, the teams 3 and down, even if I were the Redskins, I would consider this, but they've already kind of shown their hand, I think, by trading Sam Howell. Not to say he's great. You have to hit on that pick. So, I've heard talk about the Patriots. I've heard talk about who's pick 4. I keep forgetting who pick 4 is. Let me pull up this draft order. Pick 4 is pick 4 NFL draft order. I have this in a
Cardinals.
second.
The Cardinals are fourth.
Cardinals. All right, so you got pick 4 now. Everybody assumes that the Patriots are going to take a quarterback, but my question is, it's always the chicken or the egg. What comes first? People say about the Patriots, well, you don't have anybody there, so why get a quarterback? Get weapons, then get a quarterback, or get a quarterback, then get weapons. Which do you get first? Do you build something, then bring in a quarterback, or do you get a quarterback and build around the quarterback, or do you trade out? Right? But I got in this discussion. What would you do if you have a generational talent? And I believe Marvin Harrison, maybe even Malik Neighbors borders on this, but we'll say Marvin Harrison Jr., I think, is a guaranteed generational talent in the draft. He's got the pedigree. He's taller than his dad was by about 4 inches. I don't know where that came from. His mom must be tall, because Marvin Harrison was not no 6'4", not even close. That I don't know. Maybe is he adopted? But anyway, so I'm just saying he's 6'4". He was considered a top 3 pick last year going into this year. He's coming from a university that has a pedigree for good wide receivers and quarterbacks. Justin Fields, the jury's still out. I still think he's good. But when we talk about the kid on the Texans. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. Help me out here. You guys know who I'm talking about. Their quarterback. Can't believe it.
Stroud.
Oh, Stroud, right? You got Chris Olave, who has played well. You got the kid from the Jets, Wilson, right? You got
Mhm.
you know Jackson Smith and Jigba. So there's a lot of good receivers that have come out of Ohio. So in my mind, there's a lot of teams that want quarterbacks. You got the Vikings, you got the Raiders, you got the Broncos. There's a lot of you got the Patriots, right? The Giants might even have to consider it, right? Some people say, well, Daniel Jones stinks because they don't have a weapon. So the Cardinals, obviously everybody thinks that they might go for Marvin Harrison. However, if I'm the Patriots or another team, Marvin Harrison falls in my lap. I need a quarterback. Do you take the best player in the draft, right? And I worded this to Kyle a certain way. Do you have a top 5 draft pick, and your team needs a QB, but do you have a chance at a generational talent at another position? And it doesn't just have to be based on Marvin Harrison Jr. here. This could be philosophy in general. Do you take the best QB left or the best player? I'll start with you, Kyle, since your
Yeah,
team that you like could be in this position of
yeah,
making this decision.
yeah. And
You have to hit on that pick.
I
You have to hit on that pick.
absolutely, yes, yes. When you draft that high, you have to absolutely hit because missing a pick like that sets your franchise back several seasons. I mean, I've gone
I'm
through
going with
every
Marvin Harrison
scenario.
Jr. on Calvin Johnson's status here. I know they're a different type of receiver,
Mhm.
but he is the highest drafted receiver ever at 3, I believe, out of Georgia Tech. And you know, you can say he didn't win a
Why did I
championship, but
think
he's a Hall of
Keyshawn
Fame.
was drafted higher? Wasn't Keyshawn drafted higher?
He was
Was he?
number one, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Well, he shouldn't have been. But let me see. He might have been number one.
Yeah, Keyshawn
Yeah, I
Johnson
think.
was the number one pick.
Yeah.
All right. Well, he was considered a generational talent at that pick, but
Mhm.
let me see. I'm looking that up right now. I think he was. I think you're right. Was he? Yeah, I think you're right.
I think. Or was it the
Yeah.
Bucks? He played for both. I don't. I think my brain is
No, he was
short-handed.
selected first overall. You're right.
Yeah.
All right. So someone said that to me the other day. Boo-hoo them. But I still will say, I'm still going to put him on Calvin Johnson status. If I said he was Keyshawn Johnson status, that'd be a downgrade for Marvin Harrison Jr. No one's drafted him. Keyshawn had a nice career, but you know, not what they thought it was going
Mhm.
to be.
I mean, yeah, because like I said, I've gone through every scenario because, as Mo put in the chat, they did get Jacoby Brissett, which I felt like was a move to leave options open. If they didn't do that, then they'd kind of be locked into what they had to do at 3. So I'm almost at the point if they're not in love with Drake May, then don't take him at 3. If like because I think Anthony said they're in love with Jaden Daniels. To be honest with you, that's the guy I kind of want. So if he goes second, and now because this kind of does fit your question, you're tasked with a quarterback you like, you don't love in Drake May or Harrison. I know some people say Neighbors could go ahead of Harrison, but if you want to look at it that way, I know how important the quarterback position is, though. That's also part of the problem. But I think if you went with the generational talent and you let Brissett kind of work through the issues this year, take the bumps and bruises, and then you get a quarterback next year, you might be better off in the long end. Plus, they have a pick at the top of the second draft, at the second round. Who knows? Maybe there's a guy there who you bring in, maybe you know blows you away in training camp, and you find a diamond in the rough or something like that. So I would probably go generational talent or trade back, which I know wasn't part of the question, but I feel like if you don't love the quarterback that's sitting there, don't do it because we've seen a lot of situations in the NFL where organizations take quarterbacks that they didn't necessarily love, they don't really develop them, and then you just find yourself in the same situation a couple of years down the line. I mean, you brought up Daniel Jones. Giants took him high. and they're already looking for ways out of the contract, out, just off of him in general.
He was a
And
6 pick. He was a number 6 pick, right?
Yeah.
that
And as an
sounds right.
Eagles fan,
Because everybody,
I was like,
Daniel
who?
Jones, who?
Yes. I was like, yes, sign that.
Yeah,
You know, I was
and that's
ecstatic.
and that's the same thing when the Bears took Trubisky. Trubisky was a guy who started at North Carolina for what, one season, didn't even set the world on fire there. But for some reason, somebody in their scouting department looked at him and said, "That's the guy we got to take." And yes, I do agree with you, Godfrey. Nobody knew Mahomes was going to turn into what he's turned into. Because yes, he played at Texas Tech, which everybody put up numbers at Texas Tech. It was the conference. It was just that school. So there was like no way of knowing how good he was really going to be. So yeah, I'd probably go generational talent because even if you get a top wide receiver, weapons like that don't come around every year. So it's hard to pass that up for a guy that you hope turns into something in that quarterback.
And let's
Take the
keep in
known
mind,
over the unknown.
Mahomes could have sucked if he went to the wrong program. He sat
Absolutely.
for a year under the tutelage of Andy Reid, who is one of the greatest coaches of all time, one of the best offensive minds of all time. So, and I think a lot of teams should invest more in sitting their quarterback. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to point that out. I don't mean to interrupt you, but yeah, it's a tough question, right? I mean,
Yeah.
listen, Jaden Daniels, I think Kyle will tell you, I literally predicted the Texas trade on air last year when we were on a draft before they did that. Like
Yep.
I pulled that literally spot on. It's out there. You can find it. I have the
I'm
receipts.
still mad at the Texans about that because because I think we were close to trading up to get Stroud. We
Yep.
were.
They made the move there. And the thing about this is that, the reason why I bring that up is I think the first two, Jaden Daniels, I think is absolutely going to be a commander because first off, the report is that the Bears they got offered a trade because he's a Maryland kid from Caleb Williams. Not saying that's the reason, but like that's why I think they wanted him. And I would have took the trade if I was the Bears, right? I have questions
Mm-hmm.
about Caleb Williams, and I could point to exact questions, not just hyperbole and people hyping him up or down. Cliff Kingsbury being offensive coordinator, I think that says I'm taking Jaden Daniels. That I think, and that's why I think that. I don't think they're going to take Drake May. Maybe they'll surprise me, but if it's Cliff Kingsbury's the coach, I think it's they're taking Jaden Daniels, which then says everybody assumes Marvin Harris is going to go to the Cardinals. So I don't know. Is that your final answer, Kyle? Do you don't?
And I
I
will
guess for
say this.
tonight, that's my final answer because it's so because I've convinced
Are you
myself
taking the QB or the generational player?
I would go generational talent, but like I said, that's probably tonight. If you ask me this tomorrow, I'd probably say give me Drake May because I've seen some
But
stuff on Drake May. I've convinced myself Drake May could be a good NFL quarterback.
players come out of nowhere. Like, listen,
Yeah.
the Patriots drafted Brady, but they shouldn't get credit for drafting. They didn't think they were drafting their future. They got lucky. I'm sorry, Maurice, but the Niners got lucky with Brock Purdy. So teams, because if you really, they passed on him a million times, and so did the Patriots, like every other team, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they got lucky. Now, good at them for giving him a chance, but sometimes you can talk about all these generational talents that were supposed to be that, and they just didn't pan out. If it just, I'm with you. I mean, so that's interesting. So your generational talent is your answer. Like you're taking the generational
Yes.
talent.
Yes. But I do want to say about this Anthony comment. I brought up JJ McCarthy last year, and I was told like McCarthy's not going to be a first round pick. He's not that good. And now you fast forward 1 year later, and there's talks of JJ McCarthy going top 5.
I
And
think that's
people are saying
lunacy,
like,
in my opinion. But
I heard somebody say he had the best pro day they've ever seen, and I'm like, whoa.
People
So
love
see,
to
my thing is,
exaggerate.
why doesn't Harbaugh trade Herbert and go up and get him? They can't
because
because
that's
that
He
contract.
ain't
Damien's
gonna do
thing.
that.
But that's Damien's thing. Damien's been on that from like day one. That watch him do that, and if that happened, I don't want to know how crazy Damien might start getting in the chat. So I don't need
I
that to
mean,
happen.
listen, my thing with JJ McCarthy is he could be that
Yeah,
guy. But what I'm
he could
going
be.
off of, like you talk to a Vikings fan, you talk to certain fans that if their offense is the type of offense where they're a pass first offense, is JJ McCarthy that guy? I mean, they ran for over 2,000 yards on the ground. He didn't pass for over 4,000. Can he be that guy? Can he process the reads that quick? Right? And
Hmm.
he might be that guy, but then you got to say, well, Drake May is more of a classic passer, right? And then people will say, well, he had Josh Downs. I'm like, okay, Josh Downs is good, but he wasn't that good, you know. And then Drake May did have a fall off the next year. That's why to me it gets a little murky. Even with Jaden Daniels, he had two good receivers this year. And Malik Neighbors, right? And he had
Yeah, Brian Thomas.
what was his last name? The other guy?
He had Brian Thomas too.
Yeah, Brian Thomas. Now, if you look at Jaden Daniels though, he had a all right year to year before. Then he transferred from Arizona when Herm Edwards was there. And who did he have in his rookie year or his first year? He had Brandon Ayuk, right? So he had a brand name receiver, and they basically wanted him out of there. Now I like JD Daniels personally because of his personal resolve. He lost both his grandparents during COVID, so he went through a lot. So I kind of like his character there. Um, but he was in a star-studded passing game. So
Hmm.
I don't know. Does that translate to the NFL? Right? It could. I'm not saying it can't. When you look at Caleb Williams, like he makes me a little nervous because when you ask him what his best plays are, he says my best plays are when I'm off script. That makes me nervous because Zach Wilson said the same thing. I'm saying he's going to be Zach Wilson. I'm not sure, but I got to tell you that makes me nervous when a quarterback says that. You can't go off script like you think you can in the NFL from college because I'm going to give you an example. And it's called Kyler Murray, and he has learned that. You cannot go off script. You're not just going to out athlete everyone. You know, that ain't going to happen because all the best players in the NFL. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of questions, but that's why it's a good question. Generational talent or the best QB that's left. Now, Jory, where do you go with this?
See, my team don't have this predicament.
They
I
don't.
would say I have a predicament picking at 7 because I don't know if a Doomsday is going to be available or if Joe Alt is available. They better get him because I would love to. I need to be my line. Can't have too many linemen, especially with Will Levis. But if my team was in that predicament, which they haven't been in a minute, even though we've been trash, but knowing my GM, he could find a diamond in the rough, considering that he's built this team so far. I would go get the generational player first, and then he probably has some players on his lookout list for later rounds, like second or third round. And if they can find a quarterback that they think will hit with the pieces that are around them, then yeah. And I definitely don't know why y'all trust any quarterback that comes from North Carolina. They are not a football school. Clearly, with Daniel
True.
Jones and what's his face?
Trubisky.
No, no. See, North Carolina might get
Trubisky
upset
came
with
from
you
North
because
Carolina.
that Daniel Jones went to Duke, so different North
Oh, that's
Carolina
right.
school.
Yeah,
It's
But
still in the state.
I keep forgetting. David Jones went to Duke. I
so
mean, yeah, but Duke's not a
you're going
football school.
generational talent,
Hmm?
generational talent.
Yeah, I'm taking the generational talent. I believe that I have a good, like if I was in that position with my GM current staff, they can go find a diamond in the rough quarterback in the later round. You don't let that generational pick slip my hands.
Yeah.
Well,
So for
does
me,
the success of Brock Purdy kind of change how we think about the quarterback position? Like, if you have the right pieces around the guy that isn't a first round pick, you
and
have the right
they have a system
offense
together,
and everything.
right?
Yeah. So if you built all that first and you get a guy in the mid rounds, you can still have success in this league.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can.
If it's not an immediate need, like for my team, I know a quarterback isn't an immediate need. We have a quarterback. We have quarterback 2. Now quarterback 3, they might cut Chaos Mario and go find another quarterback. But
Hmm.
yeah, they could find a QB3. It depends on your team's needs. I don't need a quarterback. I can use a practice squad quarterback or a decent backup quarterback, but nah.
Yeah, for me, like I got in this conversation. This made me think of this question. With the draft coming up, and one of my friends is a Vikings fan, so he has all these weird ideas where he thinks they're going to jump up and get JJ McCarthy, and they might, right? But I was saying that you know there's always a surprise every year in the draft where we're like, wow, we didn't see that coming, and I think one of the surprises this year could be maybe New England takes Marvin Harrison Jr. right at 3.
They do have a bridge quarterback. Brissett is capable.
Right. They have a
Yeah.
bridge quarterback, right? And the reason is because when I look at it, like, and what's my backup plan? I draft Jordan Travis from FSU. Kid hurt his leg, showed some resiliency. You could probably get
Mm-hmm.
him in a second or third round pick, right? Um, and he sits for a year, you know. Or I trade for a Jake Browning, maybe from the Bengals. Maybe I think he has something. Maybe I think that wasn't a fluke when he played for him this year. Or I go with Brissett. Brissett came in last year and he actually showed. Yeah, there were some times when he's throwing a deep ball. I'm like, what's going on here? Jacoby doesn't do that. So I mean, you know, but number 4, you got because the Patriots could trade back,
Mm-hmm.
right? And a lot of people say do that, but to me, right, this is why I say why, right? Because your number 4 pick is the Cardinals, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
then the draft really gets flipped upside down because then I think Uduzier or Neighbors are going at. I think Neighbors goes at 4, and then it's like, oh crap, you know what I mean? Like, what's going on here? This is a whole different ball game, and I think a lot of times, people don't kind of parse it out because, like, let's say you're the Patriots, you trade back, you get a couple extra first round picks, right? What if what if they're a couple, they're starters, they're guys, they're players, but they're guys, and you traded them, and you could have had Marvin Harrison Jr. and he turns out to be a Calvin Johnson esque type of player, right? Where you can have a cornerstone in the franchise, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
this is more of an offensive game, right? And what's going on, I get why people are saying it with the Patriots because, as good as Bill was and the good systems he has, he was not a good GM, and their cupboard's kind of bare right now. I'm pretty sure as a Patriots fan, you're like, oh man, it's bare, and it is, But when you look down the draft order, the Cardinals going to go receiver, like so, the Chargers, right? It, they're gonna. I
Chargers
think they're.
lost a couple of wide receivers, so they probably
I
wouldn't need
think
to go
they're
wide
no
receiver.
doubt about it taking a receiver. So they're hoping that the Patriots don't do that. So maybe you trade back, you get that. So I think those are the 3 receivers. You got Duzier, you got Neighbors, all that. So I'm taking a generational talent, 100%, because if I look at a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. and that's the guy I pegged to be the generational talent in this draft. Okay, he's got the pedigree. Um, grew up playing football. You've seen it in college. I think he's the most sure bet in the draft, in my opinion, outside of Joe Alt. You know, I think he's the most sure bet. Brock Bowers probably seems like a sure bet, but we've
Mm-hmm.
seen that hype of the tight end before with Kyle Pitts. Maybe he hasn't had the quarterback and not in the right system, but it hasn't really produced dividends. I'd say taking a tight end, even though they're that talented, that high, it doesn't always work out right away. Vernon Davis was taken very high. I was at that draft, and he needed a whole new system. He needed a whole new coaching staff. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh. So Jim Harbaugh didn't draft him, but he inherited him, right? And for me, if you start going based off need and not generational talent, I think you're making a mistake. Because then you have to be talented as a general manager. I would draft a Jordan Travis. I would draft maybe Michael Penix. I'm not super high on, but like how much are you going to pay to jump up and get JJ McCarthy, right? Like a lot of people in Minnesota, they know it's a passing offense with Kevin O'Connell, and he's got weapons. The thing about Michael Penix is he's ultra fast, but he doesn't want to run because he doesn't want to get hurt. That dude does not want to get hit. I don't care what you say. He's got a quick release and he's got a hell of an arm. And I think he runs like a 4.43, but he ain't running. Nope. I mean, look at his games. He played 6 years in college football. 6 years. Remember that because he was hurt, right? So he got into that system. Then the guy's now the head coach at Alabama. which I think that guy's a really good coach, and I think that's going to be a really good system for passing. And I think Alabama made the right pick there. I'm not a huge college football guy, but it's easy to see that they had two good stud receivers, so he could throw the ball. I mean, and you could get out of that contract. I think, if he doesn't work out, and if you're the Patriots, you take the generational talent, because if you draft like a Jordan Travis or someone in the later rounds and it doesn't work out, then you get the quarterback the next year anyway. You're not gonna win unless Jacoby Brissett just comes out and lights it up. All right, let's say Jacoby you can't. I mean, that'd be a great story. I'd be happy
Yeah.
for him. I doubt that's gonna happen, but maybe it does. I doubt it. And you have the kids sit and learn, and with these other kids, Drake May, like, when I see, the thing about him is he might be great, but when I heard him talk, I didn't get the feeling of a guy. Like, I got the same feeling when I heard Sam Darnold and Blake Bortles talk. I was like, these guys, I don't know. I didn't really feel intelligence. I didn't feel like they were going to be a student of the game. I felt like they were missing a chromosome, the Cro-Magnum, or something like that. Like, I don't know. That's the feeling I got from Drake May. I
I
was like,
mean, I don't want to hear that if he's going to be my next quarterback, man. Come
well,
on
that's
now.
I mean, he could be. I could be completely wrong, right? I mean, I kind of
No.
felt like
Yeah.
Eli Manning was a little bit of a hayseed, and he ended up winning a couple of Super Bowls. So, Drake May might be one of those country bumpkin dudes. I don't know, and like and maybe he's a gunslinger, maybe he's a Brett Favre, or maybe he's Jeff George. To me, you have to have the right system in place, at least for quarterbacks to a certain extent. So I know Marvin Harrison can ball, and I'm still getting that system in place. Like with New England, what system do they have in place right now? Jarrett Mayo's new. Who's their offensive guy? I mean, I know, but I'm going that. And if they don't go that way, I think they should trade out. I mean, if they get Drake May, just to get the quarterback, that's great. But like, these kids need to have the right system in place. I mean, I just don't. It doesn't make sense to me, and I know New England fans, most of them, they're not going to want to run a quarterback. They're going to be, oh man, we need Tom Brady. We need a guy to be throwing the ball back there in that pocket. But I'm sorry, sirs, that's not how the NFL has been evolving. So you better move on, because you're going to have some mobility vehicle. You can't get away being a statue anymore. I mean, Tom Brady was a goat, so I mean, it's just you're going to have pocket mobility. You know, and if you don't take the generational talent, in my opinion, you're setting yourself up for a world of hurt. I mean, you're guessing at that point, because at pick 3, I look at these picks. Let's say Patriots pick Drake May. All right, or they take McCarthy. Maybe they take McCarthy. The Arizona Cardinals are definitely taking Harrison. All right. The Chargers, I think, are going to take Malik Neighbors. The Giants might even take a Duzier, because and that's the thing. When you hear about the Giants, you're like, I talk to people, I have the argument. They're like, well, Daniel Jones, doesn't have any playmakers. I'm like, what? I'm like, put those receivers on. Put Jalen Hyatt on a team where there's a good quarterback, right? It's the same argument that I make with Lamar Jackson. They're like, oh, they don't give him receivers. I'm like, they don't. Yes, they do. And they act like the receivers are trash because it's not his game. His game doesn't facilitate receivers flourishing in that system, right? But then when you take Justin Herbert and put him in that Greg Roman system, and he could pass, and he's not Lamar as far as running, but he's mobile. He's going to tear it up, because now you got him passing 30 times. They're going to run the ball, and you got a guy that's a deep threat like that. Like it's going to be nasty. You know what I mean? So I fully believe, like Lamar needed to develop quicker as a passer. They said it was Greg Roman's fault. Well, we all found out it wasn't. We all saw it in the playoffs this year. I'm sorry, Ravens fans. You might not want to hear that, but it wasn't Greg Roman.
They don't.
Do
They
not
don't.
want to hear
They're
that.
delusional. And they only hear what they want to hear.
What are they going to do when Derrick Henry outpasses Lamar Jackson in the playoffs? If that happens, and he has a touchdown pass, because Lamar's like, don't be doing that fake to Derrick Henry. Don't be letting him throw any touchdown pass. Like, that's already out of the playbook. I mean, I look at that, and Lamar, they did the right thing though. They built around him, and they're making an attempt, right? Like they did the right thing though. I mean, as far as building around him, right? And and that's what this style is now. A lot of times it was like you will fit into the offense, but coaches, the best coaches now adapt their offense to the players, right? And those are the type of coaches you're seeing. Like you saw with the Eagles, like they had to adapt their offense the year before last year. I don't know what happened this year. I can tell you what happened. That's a different show. But um, when I look at all these other teams, like the Giants, right? Like, if they get Marvin Harrison Jr., do I think that is going to save Daniel Jones's career? No,
No.
I don't.
No,
Absolutely not.
no,
Some people think it will. No, because you also have to look at the coaching situation. If Brian Dable has another bad season, his job is over.
he's gone. Yep.
He's done, and so he's not looking to. If I'm him, I'm thinking about getting a quarterback, straight up, like you know what I mean, and on all that stuff. Because if you get a receiver and you're the Giants, yeah, that's good, but it's a deep receiver draft. No, that's a team where like I'm thinking about getting a quarterback because Daniel Jones might not even be ready. Now, maybe they think that he could work miracles with Drew Lock, right? And Drew Lock has shown some potential in the past, but if you're gonna
Not the
put your
sideline rapper.
yeah, well, he he dropped it on my team, that's for sure, because he decided to let win with no timeouts left in 90 seconds, but whatever, in 90 yards. I don't even, but yeah, I mean, he might be good. Maybe he's known for rehabbing quarterbacks, Brian Dable. So maybe he does, and maybe they take Malik Neighbors or Oduzier if he's there, right? I think in these first 10 picks, you might see three receivers, three quarterbacks. It's like that. The Jets. They say the Jets might take someone. I don't know why the Jets would. I wouldn't waste that with Aaron Rodgers being there. He don't like rookies.
He
So,
sure don't.
Yep.
so I
Don't
mean,
piss
Yep.
off Aaron Rodgers. He might throw a fit. Ah.
but you got a lot of teams looking to move up, so it's going to be interesting. So to me, like the Patriots could just send a ripple wave through this draft if they take Marvin Harrison, and it would send, you know, oh, I think Michael Penix should go for before Bo Nix. I'm not buying into that Bo Nix hype.
Yes.
That is Garbaggio. He's a second day quarter. I think he should be second round at best. I would take Jordan Travis before Bo Nix and sit him on the bench and let him heal. I haven't seen, I'm not a huge college football fan, so I got to go back and watch some games here or there. And when I say games, not clips, and I have seen some Bo Nix games because I
He's
got to
not
see
all
him.
that.
He's not. I got to, I was
Well,
watching
I
some
think
of the
the one
Dion
thing that
games.
works for him is he had a high completion percentage, and I think a lot of people are attaching to that and thinking that he's going to be some
Yeah, but what
decent
you will have a high
quarterback.
completion percentage when you're playing Dion and their best D back is out, and your windows are like this big, and then when you get to the pros, your windows are like this big. Watch that
Yeah.
completion percentage shrink. The speed of the game is one of the toughest adjustments for a quarterback, especially to make, or anybody in the NFL, but especially a quarterback. I think Michael Penix is a better passer than Bo Nix, without a question. Now, the thing is Michael Penix gets rid of the ball quick, so that could be good and that could be bad. He don't want to get hit, so he might be the type to throw that ball away, and he throws a pick six. So it could be good and bad. So they're gonna have to whoever drafts him, we have to coach him out. But I think Michael Penix definitely should go before Bo Nix, in my opinion. I think you know, yeah, he had two good receivers in Washington, and there was a passing game, and I think, but if you put him in the right system, like I think he'd be a good fit in Minnesota. But everybody's in love with JJ McCarthy. I think Minnesota he'd be a good fit because you got Addison there, you got Justin Jefferson, you got
Hmm.
TJ Hawkins. I don't know when he's gonna come back. He's really hurt. You got Aaron Jones there, who I think is gonna have a resurgent year with the Vikings. So I think that would be a good fit there. I would even, if I'm the Giants, I would take a shot on them. I wouldn't do it at 6. I would trade back if I were them. You look at the Falcons; they really should be thinking about maybe getting a quarterback. But they're not going to do it. The Raiders, if I'm the Raiders, I'm going to take them. Yeah, if Michael Penix is there on the Raiders, if they think they could trade back and get some draft capital, maybe you do that and you draft him. But like Aiden O'Connell ain't the guy, And if I got a guy I know that can throw the deep ball, because he can throw, he's got, people might say I'm crazy. He's got that Michael Vick flick of the wrist type throw, like Michael Penix does. So like, you put him with a guy like Devontae Adams, Devontae will go and get that ball. He'll be like,
Yeah.
oh, we're cooking now, and he'll make that kid look good. Now he might throw interceptions. That's going to be up to the coaching staff to iron those kinks out. But I can tell you right now, I would go with Michael Penix over Aiden O'Connell. So I could see him going, lower than 22, but Bo Nix should definitely, out of all the quarterbacks, I mean, I put it behind Jordan Travis personally. I know he's been hurt, but I mean, I like what I saw from Jordan Travis in college. I like the guy's resiliency. I'm not gonna. I saw Bo Nix play against the Colorado Buffalo, and yeah, they blew out the Colorado Buffaloes. But I wasn't like, I didn't come away from that game like, wow, Bo Nix is a stud. You know what I mean? I didn't think that. So
What did Bo Nix do when he was at Auburn? Flunk it out, burn out. That should tell you
yeah,
everything you need to know about them. He had to go to a conference with no defense. Well, now they're playing better defense, but he had to go to a
Yeah.
different conference to succeed. Because in the SEC, he couldn't do it. Bo Nix is not that guy for me.
yeah, and that's a big indicator and a red flag. Sometimes it's not truthful, but it is. I mean, you have a guy on your team, Malik Willis. He went to Liberty because he couldn't cut it at the school before, and he got to the pros, and it was like, oh, this guy is not. They were like, you know what, Josh Dobbs, yeah, we need you quick. That's how bad he was, and Josh Dobbs looked bad toward the end of the year last year. So that's how bad Malik Willis was. I mean,
that was a headache.
Yeah, but you got to go generational talent when it comes to NFL. If you don't, all right, some people say Caleb Williams is generational talent. I don't know if he is, but as with the Bears, I think the way they handled it was dumb. They showed their cards, devalued Justin Fields, and and it's obvious that he was going to trade Justin Fields no matter what, because if he kept Justin Fields and it didn't work out again, they would have fired him. Caleb Williams gets him another 3 years. That GM, right?
Yeah.
They didn't want to trade. They didn't want to trade with Washington for the pick, and they could have got. I heard a King's ransom. They would have got 3 first-round picks. I heard, but I don't know if that's true. It hasn't been confirmed. I don't know if Jalen Daniels is generational. I don't know if Caleb Williams is, but with the quarterbacks, and you're starting a franchise, you got to get some stuff around them. And with the Bears, they do have talent to put around them. They have made signings. They have gotten better on defense. So they do have an ascending team. With the Commanders, they have some system around them. Their defense stinks, but you have a guy that just bought a franchise, right? You have a guy that just
head coach blew a Super Bowl and was definitely a part of the Cowboys' collapse.
Dan Quinn? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't get the hiring, but I do think
it almost seemed like he's the only one who's going
to take Dan
the job.
Quinn was a victim of bad offensive coordinators, Kyle Shanahan and Dick Cotter at the end of his time. I think Dan Quinn could be a good coach from a defensive perspective if he lets his offensive coach do his thing, and that's why they brought in like a Cliff Kingsbury. They could be good. I don't know. I just think you can't miss. I mean, because you don't want to. I mean, look at the Eagles, right? Like they thought they were smarter than the average bear getting Jalen Reagor. I mean, I was happy about the pick, but now it's
Jalen Reagor is my kick returner. You watch what you say now.
Yeah. Well, how about the Vikings picking him up to control the Eagles after we cut him or trade him, whatever we did, and Justin Jefferson's on that team. So I don't know. That's what I got for tonight, But I'm going generational. Like if I'm not in the position that the Commanders or the Bears are in, and the Bears painting themselves in a corner, which I thought was stupid. But we all know they're going Caleb Williams. I mean, maybe the Commanders surprise us and they don't like anybody, right? And they go Marvin Harrison. I mean, to me, I'm going Marvin Harrison Jr. Because that's the guaranteed pick. Unless you want to go Joe Alt, I wouldn't get mad. It's not as sexy, but I think that's also a guaranteed pick. That's a generational tackle as well. So.
Leave Alt alone. He needs to fall to 7. Leave him alone.
I will say, Jory, if the Patriots trade back from 3, most likely it would be like the Giants at 6 and I think they would target all.
Me and you were fighting for that. I would be so mad.
Now,
Because
if the Giants move up to 3, do they take a QB or do they take
Yeah,
Marvin Harrison?
they'd take a quarterback if they were moving up to
I would
three.
think, yeah,
Because
I would think
the
so.
way Dable yelled at Daniel Jones at times last year, he thought he was stupid.
I mean, he gives me that hayseed feeling when I see him talk. Like I put him in, he's in that Blake Bortles, Sam Darnold group. So
Uh, well, I know Jory had another NFL question, so we'll get to that one because we have like 25 minutes, and then we'll jump into the NBA to end the show. But go ahead, Jory.
Because Devontae Smith got paid. And I did want to know your thoughts about that, Godfrey, because you are an Eagles fan. And I did want to know, does this kind of push the envelope for the Eagles to win the Super Bowl? Like some more pressure.
I
Kyle, you can
think
go first. I'll let Godfrey go. And then I'll go last because I know what I think.
Oh, okay. So I even think even without the extension for Devontae Smith, I do think there's some pressure on the Eagles. I don't know if it's as much as the Niners to win it all, but for the Eagles having a team that's been there, been in the conversation, gotten close, been to the title game, and then losing, I feel like there is some pressure. Jalen Hurts, there's pressure on him to get the team there because, as Godfrey said, if Hurts has like another season where he takes a step back, there could be questions about how good he is. They might look to replace him. I think the AJ Brown Devontae Smith dynamic, maybe if they don't get there, do they break that up? Do they like move AJ Brown or something like that? You got coaches that are worried about their standing if they don't get there. So I do think the Devontae Smith signing just shows that they've identified him as a guy that they're going to move forward with. Now, whether or not 3 years down the line this team looks similar, we don't know. Because, like I said, Hurts needs to have a good year. Sirianni needs to have a good year. They already got rid of the OC and the DC from last year, so that's going to be new voices this year. Although I feel like they probably upgraded at both spots this year. But um, I think it definitely puts pressure on the. It's probably not even because of the Smith signing. I just think it's all the questions that surrounded Sirianni and whether or not he should have kept his job after last season. That's where I think the pressure is more in that instance. I think the Devontae Smith signing is just to show that he's 23. They've identified him as a top wide receiver. Why not lock him up before getting through the rookie contract, and you might end up paying more to keep him? But I just think it's
This is real
smart
smart.
business. Yeah, that's why I just think that Devontae Smith was just smart business by Howie Roseman and the Eagles. So
yeah, yeah, that's their MO. They've done it for a while. They try to sign guys early that they think are going to be Eagles for a long time. They've done it with Zach Ertz. They've done it with other players. They did it with Cam Jurgens recently. Um, and you know, I think it puts more pressure on Jalen Hurts, not as much on Sirianni. And the reason is because a lot of fans think that you could just plug in a coach and it makes everything okay. Players have to play and they have to make plays. And I like Jalen Hurts. I was a detractor before the year before last year. I questioned his ability to pass, and I think where the Eagles went wrong is they gave him the keys to the offense, and they could put it on autopilot almost, and they were wrong. He wasn't a finished product, and they shouldn't have approached it that way. And so they whiffed on their coordinators, right? Remember, they were supposed to get Vic Fangio, and we got a fourth round pick because of the damn Arizona Cardinals messed things up. He ended up on the Dolphins, right? Um, they didn't want to. He didn't want to work for that nerd anymore down there in Miami. Mike McDaniel's thinks he's so cool. So yeah, overrated. Anyway, that's another guy.
I'm
From
there
the
with you.
Shanahan tree.
Yeah. Well, the Shanahan, it's got bad fruit. But anyway, I mean, I'm looking at, you know, uh, yeah, damn Mike McDaniel's, but and then letting someone be the offensive coordinator that was a quarterback coach that is a family friend that grew up with him. I think Jalen Hurts has the ability to be coached hard, and he needs to be coached hard. You know, And I think the problem with that is that, the coordinators in Kellen Moore will make a difference. I think they saw what he was able to do with Dak Prescott, and I think they think that he could do that with Jalen. I think Jalen has more pressure on him with the signing because I look at they went after Saquon Barkley. They gave him a guy that's essentially a three down back. They gave him Devontae. They locked up Devontae Smith. I think long term he's a better receiver than AJ Brown long term because I think he's a better route runner, right? So I do think that, and I love AJ. Don't get me wrong. I'm not one of those guys that are like, oh, I don't really care what he does on social media. Just show up to the game, right? So, and AJ, I think he's a great player. I love him on the Eagles. I'm excited that they have him. I love that dynamic. But when you look at Jalen Hurts, his footwork wasn't great. He wasn't picking up the blitz. There's things that he didn't do as a quarterback. And then we say, well, it's coaching. Well, how do we know they were coaching it and he wasn't performing to the coaching? No one ever talks about that. So while Nick Sirianni, isn't, I guess he's not a hot coach right now. The year before he took him to the Super Bowl, he was the cat's meow. And, that's a hard thing to transition from. You lose both your coordinators. And like they're saying it was his offense, it wasn't his offense. Nick Sirianni is the type of guy to step in front of the bus for his players and his coordinators. And we got so desperate, and you might laugh at this, Kyle. We brought in Matt Patricia. I knew we were screwed then. Like I was like, oh, we're screwed, absolutely screwed now. And when I look at things, and I zoom out and I take the emotion out of it because everybody's like fire Sirianni. Bad organizations fire coaches on a whim, and I'm glad my owner doesn't listen to fans. When I look at the Eagles' history, everybody like, who was Andy Reid? Well, he turned the franchise around forever. Who is this Doug Peterson? We don't want Doug Peterson. People were like, we want Gus Bradley. Oh yeah, how'd that work out? They won a Super Bowl. Chip Kelly was the one time he went with the sexy pick, and that didn't work out, right? And
Chip was horrible.
Yeah. Nick Sirianni, the people wanted to fire him. I'm like, well, who are you going to replace him with? You know what I mean? Like, to me, people are like, well, are you calling plays? Are you not calling plays? He's evolved in everyday coaching. And listen, winning cures everything. No one was talking about that after that Bills game. Eagles got spanked continuously. They lost games they shouldn't have lost. Players didn't fit scheme. And I don't even think James Bradbury will be as bad as he was last year, even though he's fallen off a little bit, a lot, I should say. And I think Vic Fangio is going to correct a lot of things because he's not going to take crap from players. Look, and a lot of people didn't like the Hassan Reddick trade. You're like, well, I don't know how Bryce Huff's going to work out. That's the big question mark. But Hassan Reddick, maybe the Eagles are projecting him to fall off in the next couple of years. Could be wrong. Jets are desperate. They're willing to make a trade for anything because there is no tomorrow for them. So I mean, I guess that's a long-winded answer, but I think it puts more pressure on Jalen Hurts, the Eagles for sure. But I think they're approaching it differently than they approached it with Carson Wentz because there was like, oh, Carson's not playing as well in like 18 and 19, and then it ended up working out the way it did, and now he's the backup for the Chiefs. Irony in its richest form, and I just look at Jalen, and like if he shits the bed this year, they might start getting Plan B together. They really might. I mean, and can you blame them? Because in the NFL, it's not for long, right? And if people are being honest about Jalen Hurts, like I think he had a better year than a lot of quarterbacks, but he didn't have the standard that we were used to from the year before. So they've given him more weapons. They gave him a 3-down back. I mean, what is Saquon Barkley gonna? He seems motivated. Is he gonna be behind the line that he's never been behind the line like that in his pro career? His daughter said, "Are we gonna win now, Daddy?" I love that clip. Daddy, are we gonna win now? Giants fans, I love that. I hate the Giants. So, yeah, I think it puts a lot of pressure on Jalen, and I definitely think it puts pressure on Sirianni as well. If they had a collapse like last year again, there's a good chance he's going to get fired for sure. But I don't. I think there's the most pressures on Jalen Hurts.
And I cannot reiterate anything that you two gentlemen just said any more eloquently. So I agree. We just go on to the NBA now. because I don't need
All
to
right.
do a long-winded spiel about what I think about Nick Sirianni being a childish head coach. We're not going to go there.
Fair.
All right. So we'll get into our final topic here. So I will bring up my screen here to, I guess, bring some clarity to the
Doc Rivers
old
is going to coach
playing tournament and everything.
Just kidding.
So, so basically, playing, you got your 7-8, 9-10, 9 and 10 play each other. Loser, done, go home. The winner faces the loser of 7-8 because that winner just becomes 7. And then that loser faces the winner of that game to be the 8 seed. Hopefully that clears up. As the games go on,
What?
you kind of see that.
Wait, hold
So
on.
the
Yeah.
Philadelphia
Okay, so
76ers, if they beat Miami, they would go on to play the Knicks. If they were to
that's
lose,
7
they would play the winner between the Hawks and the Bulls. And then whoever wins that moves on
to be the 8 seed.
to be the 8 seed. And then they would have Boston.
Yes.
Yeah, I want them to win. Bring the Knicks on. They're going to bounce their ass in the first round. They don't got anybody that could guard Joel Embiid. Who?
Yeah.
Nobody.
I mean, my main question was going to be because I know this is something that Jory, I'm sure, will be ready to talk about. Old Mike Greenberg, old Greeny Jet fan who likes to kind of come up with these random scenarios, brought up the narrative of the Lakers who are in the 7-8 game in the West. And because of what Greeny saw last season with the Nuggets sweeping the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, he introduced the Lakers losing to the Pelicans on purpose, allowing the Pelicans to become the 7th seed and face Denver, then beat whoever wins from the Kings Warriors to get the 8th seed to face the Oklahoma City Thunder. So my question, I see Mo's in here. I know Mo's a Lakers fan. I'm sure Mo has an opinion on this. Do you think that is a smart way to operate in putting an unnecessary risk? Because if you just face the Pelicans, who you just faced yesterday, clearly the Pelicans cannot handle you. But because you want to run from Denver, purposely lose that game, then put yourself at risk against the 9-10 winner to possibly lose that one, and then now you're just completely out of it. Do you think it makes sense? Because I don't. I think, look, Greeny does this from time to time. It's one of the reasons why I feel like people pick on him when they go on there. He's not an athlete. He's that fan that you'll sit next to, and about 5 minutes later, you're like, get me away from this guy.
He's on ESPN, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, he's Greenberg. Okay, he's a Jets fan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, he introduced
also explains
that.
a lot too.
It does. Yes. It really does. But looking at that, how do you feel about that? Like, do you think that's something that any team should ever entertain in terms of like seeking out certain opponents as opposed to others? And you can use the Lakers as the example. I'll go to you, Godfrey, first. Then I'll go and
Quick on this one. I mean,
go last.
if they did that, and I don't know, it's a theory. I don't think anybody would admit that, but if they did that and then they get smoked by one of those two teams in 9 and 10, they're gonna look so bad, especially after they handled. I believe you're telling me they handled the Pelicans earlier on. So I don't.
Yes.
That doesn't make sense to me. But like if that's revealed, that was the thinking behind that. That would tarnish LeBron's legacy, because if you are the GOAT, I don't think he is, but if you are, you don't back down from any challenge. So, yeah. I mean,
no, that was Greeny's idea.
Right. But he's theorizing that they might.
Yeah, he's saying like if the Lakers think about that, it'd have to come from LeBron.
Yeah.
I don't think LeBron would do that, but so yeah, I don't think it's a great idea. I mean, I get where he's going with it because of the seating and all that, but like, I mean, what does that get you? Like, either way, you're going to be you're not going to, I don't think you're going to beat OKC. You know what I mean? Like people think that can happen. I guess is that the theory? Like they can surprise the Thunder.
Yeah, because a lot of NBA analysts look at Denver as the favorites to come out of the West again. They're seen as a team that they swept the Lakers last year, so they assume it'll be more the same this year. Oklahoma City is the new kid on the block, very young team. Lakers are a veteran team, so they assume the Lakers will destroy Oklahoma City, which
Okay,
maybe they do, maybe they don't, but
be
I don't
interesting.
know.
I'll refrain. I want to talk Eastern Conference too, so I'll refrain from
Okay,
comments. To the,
all right. So I'll go very quickly. I don't understand it necessarily because you're looking at adding another game on LeBron, on AD. AD came out of the game the other day with the back spasms. You don't know how that's going to act up or anything like that. But if you're going to sit here and avoid Denver in the first round, if Denver makes it to the conference finals, you're just going to see them there anyway. If you make it as an 8 seed through Oklahoma City and then the Clippers or Mavericks, you'll still see them later on. Like, wouldn't you want to face Denver early on? Because maybe you catch them when they're a bit rusty, because they will have days off being the 2 seed, whereas the Lakers play tomorrow. If they win tomorrow, they'd be off until, I guess, Saturday, when they'll probably play game one. But Denver's going to be off for a full week. You'll have at least an extra day or two where you played a game. Maybe you steal a game in Denver. The pressure now gets onto Denver. Maybe you do something and upset the Nuggets. Now you look at that and you're like, okay, you've taken out probably the toughest team in the West early on. It makes every other round a little more comfortable for you. It's the same way they could face Denver. They could lose, sure, but you take that chance, you play the game, and you just leave it up to who's the better team. I don't understand why you would run away from them. Doesn't make any sense to me at all.
how does more
Because
than
like,
fifty
It's a
percent of the teams make the playoffs?
hmm?
More than 50% of the team makes the playoffs.
Yeah.
Damn, what? I don't know. Maybe I'm old fashioned. Whatever.
But yeah, Jory, you can go ahead because yeah, we'll leave some time to talk East as Godfrey wants to. So go ahead, Jory.
That was the dumbest take I have ever heard. And when I heard it this morning, I'm like, are you serious? You mean to tell me that you think that we should lose a game on purpose? Let's just say bump competitive. There's competitive people in that locker room that want to win a game, period.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Bump competitiveness. I don't want to play the Nuggets because the Nuggets are unbeatable. If they were unbeatable, they would be undefeated. Idiot. Um, they've been got. They are beatable. They have stretches throughout the season where you look like they don't look the same. They are not this whole. They're tough. I get it. They're tough, but they're not worth ducking smoke for. And the whole idea is just dumb. So you can. What if we lost on purpose versus the Pelicans, which is a game that we should win because we just beat the crap out of them yesterday? If we lose a winnable game on purpose to play an even more difficult game versus either the Warriors or the Kings, and we lose, who's gonna be looking stupid, remedial, like they didn't get off the long bus?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Like what?
Crazy. I agree.
Why would you make the journey harder for yourself when the path is literally right here? Win the game. It's simple. You don't have ain't no ducking smoke in the NBA, and that's where Greeny got people messed up at. That
Hey,
is true. He is a
you
Jet fan, and
you
common sense is
guys
not
coming
their
at the
game.
Jets fans. Look at that. Listen. I have to say this though. The Lakers, like, if I'm gonna upset a team, like I think the games get tighter as you go farther into playoffs. If you're gonna sneak up on a team and upset them, you want to. I would rather hit the Nuggets in the next round than in the finals of the Eastern Conference.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because they might be a little loose, thinking like, "Oh, our ticket's punched. We're gonna get to the Western Conference Finals." Like, you got to sneak up. You got to get them early. Yeah, that's a bad idea. You know,
And then you had Shanae over there just halfway agreeing with him. I'm like, are you serious? And you played the game. We're talking about losing games on purpose
Mm-hmm.
to duck smoke. Ain't nobody scared of Denver. I'm not.
I mean, if they don't want to win, maybe they should just make it a pro day for Bronny Jr.
Pretty much. Like, let's just hop off of that ledge. Ugh.
Yeah,
Oh, they
I was so
drafted
glad that
Cameron
Tim
Brink to
Tim
the
Legler was
Sparks.
there. I was glad Tim Legler was there and Andrea Carter because they were both like, no, you don't do that. That's dumb. So luckily they were there. Otherwise, Greeny might have just kept diving off of that deep end and probably would have said some more wild stuff. But we can all agree. Just win Tuesday, take your days off, get ready for Denver over the weekend. Because that's another thing. You lose Tuesday, that means you're playing Thursday against the Kings or Warriors. Then you're going to have to turn around Saturday, well, probably Sunday at that point, and face Oklahoma City. Yeah, no need for
The
that.
Sky
All
got
right.
Cardoso from South Carolina.
Oh, she went number 2. Okay.
She went
All right.
3.
Oh, 3. Sorry. Oh, sorry. Right. And Caitlin Clark was number 1. Shocker. But yeah.
Brink was 2.
Who was 2?
Cameron Brink from Stanford.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. It's kind of going according to plan. All right, so looking at the East, because Godfrey wanted to talk about the East, we have a few minutes left here. So once again, to explain, Sixers face the Heat. The winner of that gets the Knicks in round 1 in the 2-7 matchup. The loser would face the winner of the barn burner between the Bulls and the Hawks, with the winner of that facing the Celtics as the 8th seed. So, I mean, looking at this, Godfrey, you are a Sixers fan. I'm assuming you want the Knicks.
I want the Knicks. I'm more. You know what? No, I don't. I want the Knicks because I want to beat the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals. So that's that. I want that old school. I want to brawl the breakout. I want it like '80s. Like I want to see I want to see Larry Bird and Dr. J choke each other on the court. But 7-8, I'm more scared of getting past Jimmy because he's that dude that might pull it out. You know, he's done it to the Celtics. You know, and
Yeah.
I'm more scared of that than I am the Knicks. So they get past that and they get the Knicks. I think the Sixers are dangerous. Nick Nurse has his team playing differently than Doc because Doc Rivers he sucks, as we all know, overrated. He'll blame the equipment people for he'll blame himself. He stinks. We're better just by him not being here. James Harden, get out. I don't, whatever. And he has the whole team playing, and they won 8 out of 10. Maxey plays better with Embiid there, obviously, and if Embiid is healthy, I think they're going to make a run in the playoffs, provided that they can get past Jimmy Butler, because I feel like he's a ghost that haunts us from our past. So they get past him, and I think the Celtics are definitely going to be getting toward there. Anybody else in the East, Oh, and by the way, I'm sorry, I forgot to say this. I want this to happen this way because I would love nothing more than to face Doc Rivers and the Bucks if they beat the Knicks in the next round.
I knew you was going to go there.
Oh my God!
I knew it.
Please. When he comes to Philly, it is on. Oh my God! We'll be calling. I hope we break out a Glenn Rivers chant in the crowd. Glenn. I'm starting it right here. You're not no doctor, Glenn. Let's go.
That's why I got the Bucks under my frauds in the making category as far as playoff teams are concerned.
Yeah, they gotta get
because
past
they
the Patriots,
are.
right? I mean, Doc Rivers. I don't know what. Like they got worse. How?
Mm-hmm.
They
And
quit.
Giannis going to be back for the playoffs? I didn't get an injury status update.
He's doubtful game 1.
Oof.
They just quit the last game, flat out quit, and they've been half quitting for most of it for a while. Slow quit.
Either way, if they get past
could Doc have been ducking Philly for round 1? Maybe he wanted to lose to drop down to 3.
Yeah. Ooh. Oh man. Oh my God. I don't even want to pay for playoff tickets, but I would have paid for that one. Oh. Like if they get to play him, my God. And you know what? Listen. Let's say they get past the Pacers and they get past, I don't know, they get past the Pacers and they get past the Sixers. and I think the Celtics got a good chance to go to the Eastern Conference Finals. Then he's got to face his old squad in the
That's another
Celtics.
storyline. Yep.
He's got his ghosts are here for him. The ghost of Christmas
Orlando's a ghost
is
too.
here.
He started his coaching career in Orlando.
Yeah. Oh, and also the ghost of Tim Duncan. You can't bring your family on the plane, so we can't sign with Orlando. And he went and signed back with the Spurs. That story is. I wouldn't let him get me popcorn if I was the GM after I heard that story. But you have an opinion on this guy? Just coach, Doc. I don't need your opinions after the Tim Duncan debacle. Yeah, you should not be hireable after that. You let Tim Duncan get away because you wouldn't let his kids fly on the plane. How do you get a job? I don't know.
I bet his kid was on a plane.
I don't like Tim. Do you want your own plane? I'll get you your own plane, Tim.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Doc Rivers. Yeah, he has
whoever
the
wins
most
the
pressure
9 and
in the
10
East.
game in the East is definitely going to get their butts kicked by Miami.
Did you hear what he said
Because
when
I
they
have a
asked
feeling
him
that's
about
what's
how bad
going
they
to
were on
go.
the road? Did you hear his response? Doc Rivers' response? He said, I'm looking at everything. I think he said something about the travel team, the equipment team, stuff like that. Like he's the CEO. I'm like, what? I'm like,
Stuff that don't matter, and take a look in the mirror, you dummy. Like, all right, look.
Giannis isn't a very good GM. Yeah, he's the Maurice. You
He
know what
is
I'm going to
not.
say? He's trying to do his Braun. Braun's got a record, a sketchy record as a GM as well.
But these small
And a
market
coach killer. He's starting
teams
to
feel like
become a
they
coach
have to
killer.
do that. Yeah, like Adrian Griffin wasn't doing anything wrong.
He
What
just
he tried to
didn't. He
coach
said
you?
the truth about the Nassus, which is he didn't need to belong on the NBA roster, and that he was just a waste of space, and he got fired.
Wasn't there a coach? They were a player upset about how he treated like an assistant coach. His name was Porter or something like that, or I forget who it was. That got let go, and they were mad how he acted toward the player in front of the coach in front of the other players. I forget which assistant coach Griffin got rid of, but
Yeah, it was.
Next Bucks coach then. I mean, that's
yeah,
basically all he does. He
It's
runs
cheer
up and down that sideline. Yeah.
and get a taking
Pat
point per
Riley wouldn't
seconds.
play that. Pat Riley, if he was
Oh
running an
no,
organization, he'd like
no.
hell no.
Yeah. Pat Riley would have gotten rid of Giannis before letting him call the shots. And
Exactly.
and that's what I love about Pat Riley. He doesn't care about the PR hit and people saying you're crazy because he has the pedigree. And these smaller teams like Cleveland would have done anything LeBron wished. Milwaukee's doing the same thing with Giannis because they're fearful of Giannis going somewhere else and their fans saying, "How'd you let this guy get away?" Sometimes you kind of have to bite the bullet and move on. Not saying the Bucks need to get rid of Giannis, but they need somebody to tell Giannis, like, "I'm the coach, that's the GM, you're the star. The players we bring in, you make it work on the court, but let us handle the books and everything like that, the roster construction." Because the whole pushing Drew Holiday out the door for Damian Lillard and then getting a coach who's a defensive mind and tell him work with that. Dame is not a lead defender, but you have a defensive minded coach who wants to preach defensive pressure. Dame's not going to run that. So of course they're going to butt heads. But you fire the guy, he's 30-13, and I think Doc's been like 14-16 or something like that, like under 500,
He's
which is
15.
crazy.
I think he's 15-18.
Okay, I knew it was something like that, but it
Wow.
just looks like a terrible move that they made. But it was all because the team didn't like Coach Griffin getting on them. Like, you're professionals, get over it. Let's see, Pat Riley press conference after the Heat lost in the finals or Spurs is
It sure
priceless.
is.
So, all right. So this play-in starts tomorrow night. No, wait, Wednesday. Or is it
No, tomorrow night. Tomorrow night you
Tomorrow.
get the 2 West games. Wednesday night you get the 2 East games, and then the remaining games will be Thursday to determine, I guess, the 8 seeds.
Why they got the East playing back to back then?
Huh?
If they start, never mind.
Yeah,
That might have been
because
a dumb question.
Yeah, tomorrow night's Lakers, Pelicans, Kings, Warriors. Wednesday, you get the two East games. So yeah, so Thursday, how does it go? I think Thursday you get the one game from the West, and then Friday you get the one from the East. I think that the schedule works. Then
Okay,
the
so they're
playoffs.
not doing no back to back because I'm like, that's not
Yeah, yeah,
fair.
yeah, yeah. And then the teams that earn the 8th seed, their game one will be Sunday automatically to give them like a travel day.
Okay,
So
I get it.
yes. All right. I mean, that's kind of the last topic we had for you all. Went a little over the hour and a half mark, but it's all right because I thought it was great conversation, great show. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Appreciate you, Godfrey, and Jory coming on as well. But would definitely love to do this again next week. So for those of you who are tuning in over on X as well, which sooner or later, y'all on X need to start jumping in the chat. I know y'all be watching over there, but it's all good. So every Monday night, Cheap Seats is right here on Integrity Sports Network, 6:30 to about 8ish, depending on how much fun we're having. But I mean, Jory, Godfrey, got anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Nah, just don't do it. If you don't get the two top quarterbacks, you better take Marvin Harrison Jr. Don't do it.
We're about to enter the dog days of sports news, so let's not make up fake stuff this year. Let's not do that.
Yeah.
I'm getting ahead of it right now. Let's cut the bull crap.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a
Just
great
hope-
thing to
yeah.
end with there. I mean, luckily we get the draft next week. That will hold us over for a little bit, and then yeah, like you said, it's basically baseball. And depending if you're a baseball fan, then it's nothing for you.
I'm learning, so I'll have something to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I'll watch my Red Sox for sure. I know Godfrey is with his Phillies.
Yeah. I watched him get curb stomped 9-2 yesterday in person.
It's early on. It's early on. Still figuring some things out. But yeah, so like I said, make sure you like, subscribe, share, follow, all that good stuff. Greatly appreciate it. So for Jory, Godfrey, myself, thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your night. Go catch the WNBA draft. Catch Raw, whatever you got to
Oh, yeah,
watch.
that's right. I forgot about that Monday Night Raw. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So catch that. We'll see you next week. We are out of here. Good night.